Today's singing tips is all about the larynx, and this is what some people call the voice box. It houses our vocal cords. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the anatomy of the larynx, as it's really useful to know as a singer, but it's also going to help when I show you some larynx release exercises. So our larynx is super flexible, and we want it to be as flexible as possible as it makes up part of our instrument. The larynx needs to be able to raise and lower in order for us to change our pitch and also change the sound of our voice. So let's get started. So you might feel a little strange about touching your larynx, as that's what we're going to be doing today, but just be super gentle, make sure you've got clean hands, and let's get to know some of those muscles, cartilage, the bones that make up the larynx. So starting at the top, we have our hyoid bone, and this is a horseshoe-shaped bone. What's really cool is that it's suspended. It isn't attached to another bone, and that's what makes the larynx so flexible. So if you take your fingers like this and shift them just under your jaw, you're going to feel the edges of the hyoid bone. Now above these, we just have muscles and ligaments, and these attach the hyoid bone to the tongue, the jaw, and the skull. We'll come back to this later, but you can give it a tiny, tiny wiggle from side to side just to feel the hyoid bone in action. We'll then come to the thyroid cartilage. So if you run your finger down the front of your larynx, you're going to find a little bit that maybe protrudes a little. In singers, people with more testosterone, this tends to stick out or protrude a little bit more, what some people might call an Adam's apple. So in people that have particularly low voices and more testosterone, this can be quite pronounced. So this is your thyroid cartilage. Underneath this, we have our cricoid cartilage. And moving these cartilage in different ways can actually change the quality of how our voice sounds, which is pretty cool. Next, let's come to these muscles, membranes, and ligaments. So as I said, the hyoid bone is suspended with different muscles, ligaments. Underneath the hyoid bone, we have a little bit of space before the thyroid cartilage, and this is your thyrohyoid membrane. You don't need to remember these words, but when we come to the release exercises, it'll be useful to know that this sits here. Then underneath the thyroid cartilage, just before the cricoid cartilage, we have a little bit of ligament, the cricothyroid ligament. Then over the top here, we have the thyrohyoid muscle, and this attaches the hyoid bone and the thyroid cartilage. Then we have the sternothyroid muscle, and this attaches the thyroid cartilage all the way down to the sternum. So as with any other muscle in the body, they can get tight, they can feel almost a bit stiff. They're being used quite a lot of the day, these muscles, so we need to ensure that we are able to shorten them, lengthen them, and have a bit of control over them. So let's do some nice release exercises for your larynx. As I said before, we're going to be so gentle. We might be just shifting things maybe a couple of millimeters and that's it. But honestly, it does feel pretty great afterwards. So let's get into that space just above the hyoid bone. And we're just going to use our thumbs. You can use your fingers, again, a finger and a thumb. And just really gently rubbing the muscles, maybe circling here to free up the area. And we'll work our way down. So we'll come to the hyoid bone next. As we did before, take your thumb and your first finger, and we're just going to wiggle it really gently from side to side. You may find if you talk or sing a lot with a particularly high larynx that the hyoid bone is much higher. If you're particularly tense, I actually, after an 8-hour day of teaching, really struggled to find my hyoid bone once because it was so high up. Then I did these exercises and released it back down. You might find if you've got a naturally lower larynx that there's quite a lot of space there. And just try, a little reminder, try and keep a long neck when we do this, avoiding putting extra pressure on the back of the neck. Next bit, we come to that membrane. So it's just under the hyoid bone, above the thyroid cartilage. And the gaps tend to be about the size of your finger and your thumb. So here we're just going to do really small circles. Next, we're going to wobble our larynx. So we're just going to use our fingers to move the larynx from side to side. As I said, it is flexible. You might feel clicks. That's totally normal. So your fingers will probably sit maybe at the top of the thyroid cartilage and then coming down, cricoid, and then the trachea. And again, just really gently moving from side to side. You can shift a little lower as well. Don't forget to breathe. And then lastly, we'll just work out any kinks in that sternothyroid muscle. So maybe taking the thumbs, and you're going to work all the way down the side of the larynx. So it's quite nice to do this on an exhale. Take an inhale, and then on your exhale, running the thumbs down. Awesome. And there are some ways that you can release your larynx and get a bit more flexibility into it. Maybe try singing before and after, or speaking before and after, and just see how it feels for you, if you feel any difference. I like to do these just for a few minutes as part of my vocal warm-up and wake up. This also ties in quite closely with the tongue and the jaw. So if you haven't checked out those quick singing tips videos, then please do so. In a few weeks, I'll also do a quick video about how your larynx position can change your sound, ways to access a lower larynx position or higher larynx position, and how that will then make your voice sound. So thanks for watching today, and don't forget to hit subscribe.